are depicting this movement Vyavartita and Parivartita. And this is the Chidambaram sculpture, which is Parvati dancing the Karana. Again, you can see the hands are in Pushpaputta, and this is the Sarangapani temple, and this is the newly designed sculpture by Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam, where you can see Shiva and Parvati dancing. If Shiva is starting the Karana, then if Parvati is starting the Karana, Shiva is ending the Karana there. So you can see these hands pointing downwards, so as contrast to the Tanjavur sculpture. So one can connect the dots between all these sculpture, and then you can reconstruct those things. Next slide. Karana. The Natyashastra shloka says, Anchitam bahushirasi hastastva bhimukam angulihi nikuttitartha yogena bhavet ardhanikuttaka. So it says the tips of the finger turn towards the face in the region between the shira and the shoulder, facing towards the your face. And Abhinavagupta comments this can be done using a Alapallava hasta, which is a Nritta hasta, Alapallava. This is the Alapallava hasta. Abhinavagupta says Alapallava hasta can be used, and Abhinavagupta also disapproves Shankuka and other commentators about bending forward. So in the sculptures you can see, this is the Tanjavur sculpture, where you can see the hand is between the head and the shoulder, and it is bent, it's seen upwards, the hand is seen. And this is the Parvati sculpture in Chidambaram. This can be taken as the ending posture of the Karana, and this is not so much clearly visible. And this is the Satara temple sculpture, and the Karana was reconstructed like this. Tatai vardani kutam cha, tatai vardani kutam cha. This is how the reconstruction looks like. Next slide. Ardha Swastika. It's the 22nd Karana in Natyashastra. The shloka says, Swastikau charanau krutva kati hastam cha dakshinau dakshasthane tata cha ardha swastikam bhavet. Abhinavagupta says, and there is a, when we see at the inscriptions in the temples, the Kati Hasta is replaced by Kari Hasta. The Natya Shastra says Kati Hasta, but the inscription says Kati Hasta. There's a lot of difference between Kati Hasta and Kari Hasta. Kati Hasta can be considered as the Paksha Vanchita or Paksha Pradyotaka, which can be done as Paksha Vanchita and Paksha Pradyotaka. Whereas Kari Hasta is this one. So, but Abhinavagupta in his commentary mentions both Kati Hasta and Kari Hasta, and says when Kati Hasta is employed, you can use Paksha Vanchita and Paksha Pradyotaka. And these are the sculpture. This is the Tanjavur sculpture, and this sculpture shows the Kati Hasta, whereas this sculpture shows the Kari Hasta. New one which Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam has devised. The Karana was reconstructed like this. Arthasvastikam kitatakatam kitatakatam Arthasvastikam kitatakatam kitatakatam. You can see the Kari Hasta of right hand is maintained, and when moving towards the other direction, the Paksha Pradyotaka and Paksha Vanchita are being used. The next one. Bhujangatrasita is the 24th Karana, where the shloka says, Kunchitam padamukshiptya trayashrashritam vivartayet kati janu vivartancha bhujangatrasitam bhavet, which says the foot is lifted and the kati janu are turned it becomes Bhujanga Trasita. And Abhinavagupta doesn't say anything, but he says the Bhujanga Trasita Chari should be used while executing the Bhujanga Trasita Karana. And if we can see the sculptures, this is the sculpture of, this is the Tanjavur sculpture, whereas this is the Chidambaram and this is the Sarangapani one. The Sarangapani one is not clear in the picture. We can see the foot lifted in one sculpture. In the other sculpture, we can see the foot drawn in. And Abhinavagupta also says the Kataka Mukha Hasta should be employed. So, taking all these things into consideration, the Bhujanga Trasita is reconstructed like this. Bhujanga Trasitam. Bhujanga, this is the first sculpture. This is the second one. Sitam. This is the last sculpture where you can see the legs crossed and they are in mandala with the crossed leg. So joining all this, we can get this Bhujanga Trasita reconstructed. Next one. Valitam. Apaviddho bhavet hasta suchi padasthathaivacha tata trikam vivrutam cha valinam nama tadbhavet. So it says using apaviddha hasta and pada in suchi pada and turning your waist gives you valinam or valitam. Abhinavagupta says apaviddha hasta mentions, translates to suchi mukha nritta hasta. Suchi mukha, suchi. This is the suchi hasta, nritta hasta, and the suchi foot. And Abhinavagupta also says you need to employ a Brahmari Chari to show that the trika turned. So this comes like this. Tak dhimmi tak channu tak dhimmi tak dhimmi tak channu tak dhimmi. This is the Valitam. Like this, each Karanas have been reconstructed, all the 108 Karanas have been reconstructed, and to decipher, I would like to take one example of again Tala Pushpa Putta since, or we can take Nivesham.
5 minutes left.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go on to the demonstration of few Karanas. Could you please switch on the audio? play the last video.
Wonderful. I think this was a true demonstration of being able to do research as well as to actually demonstrate what is there in the text, and done so beautifully. I love the fact that you attribute it to your guru as well, which is really, really wonderful. I think you should give a big round of applause for
which I did was nothing of mine. It's all Dr. Guru Padma Subrahmanyam.
and some good dose of humility as well. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Is there any
Sarangpani temple in Kumbakonam. Yeah, Tamil. All the 5 temples are found in Tamil Nadu. I mean, there are Karana sculptures all over India, but the Karana sculptures with inscriptions are found in these 5 temples. So that is why it becomes, those 5 temples become the important source for authentication of Natyashastra things.
You said 104 in Sarangapani. What are the other 4 which is not?
I have noted it down. I will get back. Yeah. It is said that the arrangements of the Sarangapani temple, Karanas arrangements are not in the order of Natyashastra, and it is found that those were attached to the temple from some other temple in the later period. So the order is missing, and the only reason we could find out was they have the names inscribed just below the panel. Because of that, they were identified as Natyashastra Karanas. And this changes our perspective of looking at the temples, both as dancer or as a layman, looking at the temples. It's just not the ornamental thing which our ancestors had done it. We had so much of knowledge encoded in our temples. We usually go to the temples and run back, just 2 minutes, 3 minutes we come back. No, we have to give time for the temples, look at them in a different perspective.
Right. Since I happen to be over here, so the 5 temples again, just name them again so that people remember.
The first one is where it was found was Tanjavur temple, big temple, Brihadishwara temple, Sarangapani temple, Kumbakonam, Brihadishwara Nataraja temple at Chidambaram, Arunachaleshwara temple at Tiruvannamalai, and Vruddhagirishwara temple at Vruddhachalam.
And the strong Shiva connection, Lord Shiva connection can also be seen in all of this.
They have sculptures which show Karanas. As I said, there is no inscriptions. The only place where we can find the inscriptions and the Karanas are these 5 places. There are many temples in Karnataka also which depict the Desi Karanas and also the Marga Karanas, but they are not coded in the sculptures.
Interesting tidbit, since you mentioned Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu, of course, as a word does not exist in the Mahabharata. You don't have Tamil Nadu mentioned in the Mahabharata. You do have the words Dravid mentioned very clearly, but interestingly, counter to all the politics nonsense that we hear about separatism and Dravidianism, etc., etc., Kerala is mentioned as a separate place name in Mahabharata. Andhra is mentioned as a separate place name from Dravida, right? So this notion of one Dravidian thing which encompasses all South Indian languages or etc. is, it looks like a recent political creation, but doesn't seem to be validated at all by our ancient texts. Now we are moving away from geographies to kingdoms, right? So Pancha Dravida was used in the contrast to Pancha Gauda, but not as racial categories. These were categories specifically for, and Padma Subrahmanyam ji has spoken extensively on this. At one point of time, probably in the medieval history, what is called medieval, we need a better term, but to categorize between Brahmanas north of the Vindhyas and south of the Vindhyas. So Pancha Gauda were used to refer to Brahmanas north of the Vindhyas, and Pancha Dravida were used to for the Brahmanas south of Vindhyas. But there's a very limited usage. And notice, it is not Pancha Arya and Pancha Dravida, right? Another common binary that we see is Arya and Dravida, right? Aryan and Dravidian. Now, this binary is not attested in at least Indic texts that I have seen from before 17th century. But Pancha Gauda and Pancha Dravida is a binary, and both are geography, nobility, etc. Whereas Dravida has always been a geographical term. So it is that Kerala as a name, nobody can deny it, that in the Bori, Bhandarkar Oriental Critical Edition, India, and the text, the critical edition text is there, Kerala is very clearly mentioned as a place. So that's my limited point. I'm not denying the point that you made, but I'm saying Kerala as a separate name is mentioned. Andhra as a separate name is mentioned. I've actually written a paper on it, so I know it from the back of my mind. And Dravida as well. So that's the limited point. Yeah.
So I couldn't show certain things. If we have, technical issues, if I can show some things, then I can show how actually the Anga Upanga was important to reconstruct a Karana.
Correct. I think Sugyanji would need to suggest how we go ahead.
The Nivesham is done like this. Where Bharata says the Nivesham has to be on your tala, which is flat foot, and then Abhinava Gupta says, as you are erect and holding your hand here, you should do a abhugna and nirbhugna, which is a very subtle movement. The variations of the chest. So abhugna is this, nirbhugna is this, and kampita is the deep breathing. So abhugna and nirbhugna, how is it applied? It's a very subtle movement which gives a very different effect. And I would like to share an experience where we were learning the first Karana by Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam, and we did the Talapushpa Bhutta, we dropped it here. She said, "Enna pandre nee?" Then we were not understanding what is she pointing about. Then she like, "Yarku poo potre nee? Nirku nee poo potraya? You are putting flowers to yourself, is it? Drop your fingers." That is the kind of detailed thing she has done. The Tala Pushpa Putta, though we do it like this, you are supposed to drop it. The fingers are supposed to drop, which we can see in the sculptures. So that kind of detailed study has been carried out by Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam. And we did the Kati Chinnam, which can be equated to the today's Muktaya Adu of Bharatanatyam. So we can see the Abhugna Nirbhugna here and the Kati Chinna. So we do a Abhugna here and Nirbhugna and the waist Kati Chinna, everything here. And when we do the Karana Alata, so we go on to do Abhugna and then Nirbhugna and meanwhile our hands are doing the Vyavartita and Parivartita. So that is the kind of involvement of both Angas and Upangas, and also like Mukhaja Upangas we use in certain Karanas. As I said, Nritya Karanas, when it comes Nritya, it is not Bhava Rasa Vihinam. So Nritya Karanas are used to depict the things, the emotions also. So there's a Karana called Simha Vikriditam.